three tracks on the show. You're with Julian on the brown note, and a very quick look at the Olympics, the China Olympics. So China's hosting the Winter Olympics. Begins, I think, in 2 weeks' time. The Australian government, in their profound moral stance, aren't sending anyone to get laughed at, mocked and attacked by the Chinese media. And they're, boycotting the China Olympics. Now, you just know that Scott Morrison is going to be cheering on the China Olympics because he plays both sides of the fence every single time. So even though he's trying to get some sort of kudos out of boycotting the Olympics, he will still be cheering it on, I guarantee you. He'll be there saying about Australia is kicking gold medals in the COVID fight or some garbage. And Australia's in this schizophrenic place with these Olympics. Channel 7 are hosting this on TV. They're hiding the name of the country. They're doing these bombastic ads for the Olympics. And you look on the TV and the name of Beijing is like so small that you can barely read it. Boycotts aren't boycotts if you still go. There's a few Western nations that are boycotting the Olympics. These aren't boycotts. They boycotted the Olympics in Moscow in the early 80s and didn't send any athletes. You not sending some politicians is not boycotting anything. You are still using taxpayers' money, millions of it from Australia, sending all our athletes there, supporting the event globally, showing it and celebrating it on TV. That isn't a boycott. How are you boycotting something that you just haven't sent some invisible mandarins to go and, ironic term, use of that term, to go, some politicians to go and sit there. And given that they won't be welcome, I'm not surprised. Who would want to? You're just hypocrites. Scott Morrison will be the first person cheerleading these people on whilst also boycotting it strongly because of civil rights. Australia is hiding in plain sight in China. They are not welcome at all. China's in a de facto economic war with China. They are in a PR war with China because of Scott Morrison's idiocy in trying to go all Team Trump over COVID and saying we're going to send in weapons inspectors and getting us into this enormous trade war, which he's now thought, I know, I'll make the best. As we've seen with everything he does, he is a terrible strategist, but he will try and use any situation that arises, even if it's through his own incompetence, to actually get some mileage out of it. So he's now trying to get mileage out of the unintentionally disastrous impact his comments had on our trade relationship with China. He's now trying to parlay that into some sort of standing up for what's righteous. Despite being the architect of Manus Island and our refugee situation, but also the fact that he will be cheering on the athletes at the games and trying to pretend that that is the same, playing the same field, when you're saying that the event shouldn't be held here because it's, being held in this country that is so bad for human rights, and yet you're actually supporting the event on the other side of the fence. And it's embarrassment from Australia as well, because the Australian politicians don't want to go there. They're not welcome in China. When's the last trade delegation we've sent to China? Can you imagine the Chinese media with Australian politicians there? They know that they are going to get crucified. So we've got this very embarrassing situation where we've got one of our major TV networks broadcasting this 24/7, advertising it with Beijing in tiny letters, never mentioning that it's in China, and trying to pretend it's a celebratory event. It's like turning up to a party there where the host hates your guts and where you hate the host, and pretending that you're having a great time. It's embarrassing. And it's human rights boycotts in this instance seem to be applicable based on economic battles you're having, because they certainly aren't universally applied to who hosts major events, are they? I mean, everyone apparently was fine with Israel hosting Eurovision, I would suggest that their human rights abuses would be on a level par with anything China has done. We had the World Cup in Russia. We've got the next World Cup in Qatar. They haven't exactly got the greatest human rights record, yet everyone will celebrate it because these are really not about human rights issues. They're about economic battles. You're on the wrong side. China's on the wrong side with who we perceive as our economic allies, and we're going to try and get some mileage out of it. But it's just going to come across like this. It's this really weak Australian contingent. Whilst at home we're celebrating but pretending we don't know where the party is. It's embarrassing.